So you're all very welcome to today's webinar. My name is Chris Johnston. I'm the CEO of Adoreboard. And today we're going to be focusing on three ways that you can create customer centricity, particularly if you're an insurance company. Today I'm going to give you three actionable insights that you can start implementing in the next 24 hours, week, a month ahead. Today's session is going to be recording, so you get a copy of that. Please use the Q&A and also chat for any questions. And the focus today is really thinking about your core metric, be it CSAT, NPS, whatever that happens to be. How can you turn that into a more prescriptive way to make decisions around customer experience? And what I talk about is turning NPS to your next predictor of customer satisfaction. So today's three key goals. If you haven't started or have started your customer and employee centricity journey, this session will give you a kickstart. And if you haven't, don't worry. This session's designed to give you a turbo boost and to empower you to make a difference. And if you stay to the end, you will get a present. So hopefully that intrigues you enough to stay for the next half an hour. So please, as you go through this, ask me any questions. This is definitely a two-way conversation. So at any point, please raise your hand or use the chat function. And typically when we work with CX leaders within the insurance industry, they tend to find they are faced with three challenges. Number one is that they're manually analyzing the verbatim. Number two is they're trying to turn that verbatim into decisions. And number three, they're trying to link that to some form of operational driver. And the challenge that we often find is that NPS tries to do two things and does one thing really well, but fails miserably at the other. So if you're to think about it just from a purely qual and quant perspective, NPS will give you a rating 1 to 10, and I'll also invite your customers to write some comments. One is a categorization view of your customer favorability or advocacy. And the other is more a exploratory chance to really understand the key drivers. Challenge is that if NPS could tell you why, what's happening in the data, you would just need the metric. But in fact, we get thousands of customer comments. And the challenge is crossing what I call the NPS chasm. So your challenge is moving from what has happened, which is the NPS rating score, to why it has happened. And your executive C-level peers will be most interested in this here. And I was shocked by the stats from Forrester indicating that 3 out of 5 chief customer officers will be fired, unfortunately, because they're unable to connect the drivers of CX to business impact, helping you, make the case for customer experience. And I suppose that NPS is very relevant. You obviously understand the big debate, NPS 3.0 and everything that goes with it. But I think if you're to kind of pull back for a second, that actually what we're talking about is how you can turn the text that you receive from your customers into a competitive advantage. We see that this quote is from MIT, that they're talking about that essentially all the data is locked away in unstructured sources. The firms that find out how to use that, they'll turn that into competitive advantage. So how do you do that? And certainly the field of text analytics has evolved over the last number of decades. And if you look at the axis to your left, you can see that ultimately executives will be judged on how quickly they can reach insights. And you can see that the first attempt of extracting insights from data was back in the day, 1950s. Where they used this approach called manual retrieval using keywords. Came out of IBM, and essentially that was the first attempt at trying to extract meaning from data, and certainly that has evolved, trying to extract opinions sentiment analysis. Certainly, you can see the innovation wave is that certainly sentiment analysis is redundant, keeps you in the what has happened, not the why. And the new generation, the next generation, is all around emotion AI. How can you tell stories from data for data to be able to give you the answers? And that is a decade of my working as a spin out of the world's leader in emotion AI, Queen's University, to create a solution to help organizations across the world achieve better business outcomes from their text data. So ultimately, your job is to move from status quo so you can continue doing what you're doing. But essentially, you're going to still see your customers in black and white if you view your customers in that way. So we're wanting to move from a binary view of your customers to a really high definition color of your customers, seeing your customers clearly. And also, we want to shift the focus from sentiment analysis, positive, negative, and neutral, to understanding the intensity of the emotion and how emotion is actually formed. Certainly from a data visualization perspective and storytelling, we want to move away from the idea of a word cloud. It's a bit like pie charts. Data visualization experts indicate that pie is best left for dessert. Quite pleasing, but certainly not full of nutrients to sustain our insights. So we want to move from word clouds to understanding. And then ultimately, we want to move from the view of understanding our customers as a number to understanding our customers and employees as people. So they're kind of the ways that we want to think about moving from your current way of doing things. And I'm going to give you straight away 3 ways that you can do that. So the first action is that you can keep your NPS score and NPS question, but use predictive AI to give you a more prescriptive view of the answer. Number 2 is to keep the metric, but to change the question. I'm going to show you how you can do that by thinking about reimagining how you engage your customers. And number 3 is forget about the NPS metric and change the question. So there are practical examples. I want to inspire you with some examples right across different industries. Hopefully that creative thought will get you thinking about how you could apply it to insurance. And then I'm going to take you through more practical benchmarking for insurance companies. So let's start with keeping the NPS metric and the NPS question. So this is from the health sector. We work with the largest private hospital in Australia. We partner with Qualtrics. If you're familiar with Qualtrics and Medallia, we're a core partner. There are 65% of our customers use Qualtrics or Medallia. And in this case, the brand was collecting in real time 8,000 surveys a month. And they were, instead of measuring the patient's heart, they were measuring patient emotion using our AI in real time. But what was interesting is that AI can help you do personalization at scale. So personalization is really about grouping your customers with similar needs and issues. So in this example, they had 47 patients spiking in certain emotions. We could see it was being caused by blood pressure, and that was driving a decrease in trust by 33%, a spike in sadness by 88%. And we predicted if they resolved that, that would drive an 18% in NPS. And you're probably wondering, well, what was wrong with the blood pressure cuffs? So unfortunately, the hospital thought it was a mechanical issue, right? There was a mechanical problem with the blood pressure cuff. In actual fact, it was the nurses that were fitting the blood pressure cuffs too tightly. So every time the blood pressure monitor went off, it was squeezing the patient's arm. And unfortunately, the patients were leaving the hospital with bruising. So you can see that with the manual analysis, you can certainly read through the verbatims, left with bruises in my arm, and try to convey this to the nurses with their response that some people find it uncomfortable. whilst the customer is always right, the customer knew exactly what was happening, and they were able to understand that. So we were able to predict and obviously improve that. And the value of this, and certainly where emotion can really help you tell better stories. In the case of HealthScope, they were using it to essentially create more empathetic connection between their customer and their frontline staff. And particularly that's quite hard in high volume industries like insurance, where all customers kind of feel like a number. So Emotion AI can really help you tell those stories much better. Number 2 is to keep the metric but change the question. And this is an example for Allstate, where a strategic partner for Allstate worked with them over the last 3 years. This example is actually showcased in Forrester as the best practice of going beyond surveys. So thinking about how you can upgrade your analytics to go beyond surveys. So the example here is that we wanted to integrate the data. They analyze the data for all new recruits coming into their business, understanding the first 90 days of the experience that then drive the significant other years of the experience. And then from that, they're able to understand the key drivers. So they could see that their onboarding experience was driving 52% less trust compared to every other driver. Turns out that they were giving all the value in the last 10 days instead of the first onboarding days. They flipped that around, and they were able to reduce their onboarding time by 20%. So all of this is data input, understanding the emotion to drive the business impact. And then the third one is to get rid of NPS in total and come up with your own metric. So this example is for one of the largest blue chip companies in the world. They were trying to deliver customer experience to users globally. And essentially, they were trying to understand for their support teams delivering customer experience, what were the barriers for them to maintain the customer experience during COVID. And the question that they asked, so instead of would you refer to your friends and family, was how confident are you to maintain customer experience, customer service during COVID? And they were able to rate that on a scale of 1 to 10. And the question then became, what are the barriers to that experience, be it from working at home or the office? So they were able to understand that Wi-Fi, connectivity, mental health is driving significant volume of the data as a key barrier to their confidence levels. And by removing those two things, we predicted that this organization would be able to increase a 13% uplift in the confidence levels of the people using the customer service as a way to ensure that they maintain their experience during COVID. So that's just kind of 3 examples for how you could start to understand the experience and how you can flip that using NPS. Maybe just pause there for any questions if anyone wants to ask any questions or any clarification, and maybe pause there before going into the actual approach. Okay, yeah, there's a couple of questions. So is there any practical examples of how this can be translated for insurance companies? That's a great question. Was this able to analyze the data in multilingual? Another great question. And typically, do you find organizations replacing NPS? So there are some really good questions. I'll certainly try to address those as we go through the analysis. Just at this point, we're going to pause for a second, and I said I had a gift for everyone at the end, so I'll maybe just give you that now. So just so that everyone gets the value up front. So essentially, the gift that we're giving everyone today is that we will be able to analyze your brand, so the brand that you've registered with. We have taken everyone's participants' data online, and we're going to present 3 insights to you. So if you wanted to just very quickly use the chat to indicate whether you would want 3 insights on your brand based on online data, or we could take your NPS data to analyze it as well. So if you could just let me know, I'm going to just send a message on the chat. So that's 3 complementary insights on your brand, be it on online data that we would analyze, or based on your NPS data. So just let me know if you message me directly, and I'll type that message so that you're able to see that. And that'll just give you an opportunity whilst we're doing that to ask any questions as well. So I'm helped out here today by some of my colleagues in terms of just messaging there. So hopefully if you want to reply to that, we'll get straight to it. So we're maybe going to go into the main presentation just to show you how Emotion AI can be used at scale to help give you better business answers. So just for context, Adoreboard quantifies human emotion. We turn that into what we call decision-ready insights. And then our customers, like Allstate, then use that to create better business outcomes. So our focus is all around how can these brands make better decisions to improve the overall human experience. And you can do that both from customer and employee data. So our customers are able to analyze 1,000 comments in under 30 seconds. And with that, we're automatically giving a theme that links to emotional intensity. And then our AI is creating your full PowerPoint deck, 17 slides of insights, giving you overall performance, and then predicting if you solve certain issues in your business, what impact that will have for whatever your operational metric. So I often start with Starbucks, mostly because I'm speaking to people in the US every day, and just so that you can relate to this. So this is based on an overview of Starbucks, based on over 600 comments. You can see here that they're not performing too well, -16. The key emotion is anger. And you can see that our emotional AI strongly correlates with the NPS. So if anger goes up, NPS goes down. And you can see we're giving 3 predictions. So you can see if I was to give you a 13% increase in your NPS, the value of that from a monetary perspective, be interested to see what you would rate that from an average lifetime value. So you can see the third insight here is that people are challenged around waiting in Starbucks queues. They want to use a mobile app. And if they were to improve that, it's driving 14% more sadness compared to the overall data set. And if they were to improve that, that would drive their NPS by 1%. So that's just giving you the idea of how you would generate those insights. And essentially, this is a scorecard that we're going to give you complimentary as part of your analysis tailored to your brand. So the reason why we focus on emotion is that 80% of your customers' decisions are driven by how they feel. So we want to shift your focus from thinking about your customer as a number to thinking about them as people. And we do that by quantifying human emotion. We're one of the world's leading AI providers of emotion AI. We've built this model from the ground up. And there's 3 key things about emotion. Number 1, our model allows you to understand the emotional attributes of the different emotions expressed towards your brand. So you can see I'm holding up my mobile phone, love taking photos of the kids, battery in the charger drives me absolutely nuts. So different emotions are triggered by different themes. Great news for you is that emotions are opposite. So if you understand that the battery life isn't generating happiness, you can actually create a new emotional experience to drive a new emotional outcome. And then finally, emotions drive customer action. So we give you a way to quantify the customer behavior before it actually takes place. So you can see that the emotions go from low to medium to high. That can be positive, from acceptance to trust to admiration. Suppose your job is to arrest the experience at the annoyance phase before people go vote with their feet. So that's just to give you an idea of how you can do that. So you're probably asking, well, how do you then translate that into an operational framework that allows you to generate these insights at scale? So we provide you with a 3-step process to create what we call decision-ready insights. So step number 1 is to integrate the data to understand the drivers of the experience. Number 2 is to prioritize those based on the emotions. And then number 3 is to drive a business impact. So we're a global partner for Qualtrics, and we also integrate with a number of other providers. Our value proposition is speed to insight, so we can take all that data, analyze it super fast. We then give you a consistent measurement framework to go from a directional score to an emotional index to a specific emotion to an actionable theme. So the example here is for Apple, and you're probably wondering, well, why is Apple minus 73? So certainly there's great things about Apple. You know, people love going into the Genius Bar, getting a great employee experience. Doesn't really explain the anger. Turns out that weirdly, people hate getting emoji keyboard updates when they just want the battery and the charger fixed. So Apple, go fix the battery and the charger. So I'm going to show you the output of the scorecard that we've generated for your organization. And then as part of that presentation, we're going to take you through a benchmark presentation for the insurance industry. So it's going to be really applicable to people who are working in financial services and who are really wanting to get an insight. So again, just to keep this super simple, I'm going to give the example of Starbucks so you can see that we've gone through the overall score. All of these here are statistically significant. We then break that into adored, floored, and ignored. Adored is our 4 positive indexes from joy to trust. Floored is a 4 negative indexes from anger to fear. And then we actually measure non-emotional functional language so you can understand, is the experience emotional or functional? We then correlate that to any metric that you upload along with the comments. We give you the 3 predictions that we've talked about. And then certainly we've just shown you that we can give you up to 10 different predictions. So I'm just going to zero in on product temperature for Starbucks. So we're now back to the Starbucks example. So Starbucks, you can see that the theme is product temperature. The context of the theme is that product temperature is driving 4% of the volume, 15% more sadness compared to the overall data set. And you can see if they're to train up their baristas to hand over the coffee quicker or to change the thermostats, that would drive a 1% increase in their NPS. And you can see that no one loves a cold hot chocolate. So that's just to give you an idea of how the insights are generated. So that's just to give you an idea. I'm just going to give you a further example. Again, just trying to inspire your thoughts. This is for a fashion retailer. They analyzed 4 million online reviews of their data. They could see that anger and rage was emanating from the changing rooms, and they're scratching their heads going, what on earth is happening in those changing rooms? And suddenly they saw the theme of lighting and mirrors, and then they started reading the verbatims, and the verbatims were driving all this anger. And they were saying things like, your lighting and mirrors are like cellulite detection devices from outer space. So people were going in, seeing a realistic view of themselves, and obviously bolting out of the changing rooms like scalded cats. This was a major surprise to the board because they had invested millions of pounds upgrading their stores, putting in these funky lighting and mirrors. My key takeaway is that Emotion AI can give you prescriptive insights, turn down the lighting, change the mirrors, and reduce the number of people bolting out of your store by 25%. So hopefully those ideas that I've shared with you inspire you. I'm going to give you 4 minutes back onto your schedule because we've prepared our insights for financial services. So we're keen to follow up. So it'll be myself and my colleagues who will be chatting to you shortly, and we look forward to speaking to you in the weeks and months ahead. So my gift is 3 insights on your brand and 4 minutes back on your calendar. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much for your time, and looking forward to speaking to you in the days, weeks, months ahead. Thanks again. Cheers now. Bye-bye.